there is so much that I am feisty about. And I don't know if I'm going to fit it all in here, but last week I talked about being feisty about the outrage of everything going on, and not knowing really what to say or how to talk about it. But in the past week I've kind of been reflecting, and maybe I do know what I want to say and how to talk about it, but I'm afraid. And I think that there's a lot of people in that situation. I think there's a lot of people out there right now that are afraid to speak up, but who are totally on board with what is going on right now. People who are outraged and upset and sad, people that look like me and people that don't look like me. And I think a lot of people are afraid to speak up because there's also a lot of fear and a lot of judgment that's going on. And that can shut conversations down. And this might not be a popular thing for me to say, but I feel it so deeply that when judgment is leading us in reactions, it's not helpful in moving things forward. It closes conversations down and it shuts people down, it shuts people off. And that's not to say that we can't get angry about what's going on. That's not to say we can't be upset, because I really believe that we are in a moment where so much emotion is coming to the surface and it needs to be expressed. And the reality is that we don't have good spaces to express our feelings. We certainly don't have good spaces in the corporate environment to express what's going on internally. And I think part of what we need to do as a culture, part of what we need to do is be able to provide more spaces for emotions and conversations that really matter. And what I mean by holding spaces is that we're allowing people to speak their truth, what's on their minds and in their hearts, without judgment and with deep listening, without wanting to say something, without letting the mind get in the way of really hearing somebody. And that is a skill, and that is hard to do. And a lot of leaders don't. A lot of leaders let their egos get in the way and they don't hold space. So for those organizations that are out there that are not truly holding space for what's going on, I'm feisty about that. Because you have a responsibility when you have power to hold space and listen and be non-judgmental about what people are experiencing. Like, it outrages me to hear stories of organizations that are going to their employees of color and asking them to do the work. They're asking them to put the press release out. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The whole freaking point right now is that organizations, the leadership at the top needs to be doing the work. The work of assessing what is your culture, what is it that you want to change. And it's not something that PR should manage. No. What is your truth about how you feel about where your organization is and what needs to be done? I am so sick of all these freaking emails that I'm getting from, every organization under the sun talking about, their talk. They're talking, right? And part of this, right, is my own work of saying, not to judge. I'm judging these companies that are taking these actions. And at the same time, I also want to acknowledge, okay, it's something they haven't done before. So I want to hold space for that and say, okay, it's progress, it's movement. And I also want to call out the bullshit. The organizations that are putting this stuff out there and they don't put any action behind what they're saying. They don't walk the talk. This has been going on for years. We've been talking about diversity and inclusion, forever. But anyway, it's been in the news more and more in the past few years. And yet companies are still just talking about it. They're not doing it. And let me tell you, a 2-hour training session is not it. It's not going to do the work that we need to do right now. A 2-hour bias training, not going to be it. Providing training and resources and coaching for your top level executives, that's not going to be it. You need to be doing more. You need to be doing, not just talking. That's the whole point. That's what's getting me feisty right now. Where are your budgets? Where are your budgets for these initiatives, for your corporate culture? Let me see what you're doing on that front. And then maybe I'll start to believe these emails that you're sending out. What are your HR policies about looking at race when you're looking at promotions? The other thing that gets me all fired up is, when I hear about, in this time, in this COVID time, and companies are, giving 20%, reductions in salaries in order to retain employees, great. But you better not be taking the 20% from the women of color, the men of color. No. That's the moment to fix the inequality. What are you doing? Are you walking the talk? Go take a look at your employees' salaries. Where's the discrepancy? Put that in your email. Put that in your budget. Reallocate the funds. Reallocate the salaries. That's what we're talking about. And so I just get a little frustrated, a little feisty, that these companies think they can send an email out and they're done, they did their job. I want this conversation to keep going and going and going, not just for a week or a month or a year. This is going to take a long time to fix. It's a long game. It's not the short game. So we need to plan for that. We need to be prepared for that. And we need to reflect our budgets for that work, because you need people that know what they're doing to come in and help. And it's about starting in the right place. Because, there's a lot of talk out there about, there are people that are not going to change their mind. And you're absolutely right. They are so deep-seated in their beliefs. It's not going to change in this moment for them. They're not open to that. They're not ready for the work. So don't spend your energy on those people. That's okay. It's kind of like the work that I do. I'm a coach. If somebody's not ready for coaching, I can't coach them. They're not ready. So we have to focus on talking to the people that are ready to listen, that are opening, that are ready to look at the world with new eyes. And those are the people that we cannot shut out with judgment. We have to see they're trying. They're trying. They may not be getting it right, but that is this work. This work is about making mistakes. This work is about screwing up. I'll share a story. It's really embarrassing. It's super embarrassing. But I think it's important to share the mistakes because we're going to make it. And if we don't get over that fear of saying the wrong thing, then what progress can we really make? So I have a niece, and she has kinky hair because her mother is mixed race. And when she came to New York, I wanted to help her feel really good about herself and confidence. And so I wanted to find somebody that could help her with her hair and give her some great tips and advice and just help her to love it, because I always heard her say, I want straight hair, I want straight hair. So anyway, So I was looking for somebody, and the language that I used to explain why I was looking for somebody who was familiar with African American texture hair was horrendous. I used really bad language. I was trying to explain, well, her mom's half this and half that, and like, so she's 25%, da da da. And it was like, oh wow, I made a really big mistake. And an African American friend of mine brought it to my attention. And I was so embarrassed. Like, my heart was beating and palpitating, and I was like, oh my God, like, it was horrible. And I'm glad. And I'm glad that I learned. And I'm glad that I tried. And I had to get over it, because that's what we have to do. We have to be willing to get over ourselves to have the conversations. And I know there are people that will lambaste you. Yes, there are people that will say, no, that's wrong, or that's offensive. Yes, there will be people that say that, because that is truth. And the reality is that if we don't take the risk of getting that backlash, like if we don't see that risk is so minuscule in comparison to the risk that people of color take every day, like, are you kidding me? Like, here I am, I have a segment, Feisty on Friday, right? And I'm privileged. I'm privileged to be able to be feisty and be angry, because you cannot be black and angry in America without backlash and outlash. So I say all this to say that it is a poor excuse. It is a poor excuse to say that you're afraid. You have to be willing to take a few bullets, because you're going to make mistakes. But you do it because you really do care. Because you don't want to lead with fear. You want to lead with love and compassion, and with leaving this earth a better place than what you found it. I think that one of the things that is such a challenge right now is that we don't know how to deal with emotions, and we shut them down. We shut them down as individuals. We shut them down as a society. I get really pissed off when people are, they're really upset about the riots, and I get that, like, there are neighborhoods being really impacted, and I get that it's really hard to watch and hard to see. But there's so much rage and anger that has been unaddressed out there that I am not surprised. I'm not surprised that the rage shows up in that form of violence, outbursts, and activity. And I can't really be too upset about that, because we've created that as a society. We haven't created outlets for people that to express themselves and to be angry, and for it to be okay to express anger. That is one of the emotions that is often suppressed in all cultures, in all races. So if you're out there condemning these riots, yeah, it's bad, right? No, there's a few bad apples out there that don't know how to handle the anger. But part of this non-judgment thing that I'm talking about is that you have to sit back and say, well, why is this happening? And it's bigger than just that one individual. That one individual was being raised in a way that they didn't have the tools. And so we have to see that for what that is. As a leader, I'm always talking about process versus people issues. There is so many process issues. There's so many systemic issues, institutional issues. And so when we look at individuals and we see their behavior, we have to take a step back and say, it's conditioning. It's conditioning. And that is holding space. That is holding space and not judging and saying, that's where they're at right now. And what can I do to show compassion, even for those that are being destructive? Because everyone is hurting. Everyone is hurting right now. So this idea of how do we approach where we are right now with all of our anger and our feistiness with love? Because what's easy is to be angry. What's hard is compassion. What's hard is holding space. What's hard is being non-judgmental. So yeah, allow the anger, but don't match it with anger. If you can rise just a little bit above, if you can show the way with light, that is the progress that we need. It's a long haul. It's a long haul that we have in front of us, and we can't start tuning it out. We can't start shutting it out. We can't just send an email with a hashtag Black Lives Matter and say, okay, we did our job. No, it's barely just begun. And my challenge to all those organizations out there is to make sure that you have the right resources in your organizations to have the conversations in a healthy way, in a constructive way, in a way that doesn't create more trauma. And it takes a specific, certain skill set to do that. There are people trained in these kinds of difficult conversations, and I really encourage you to look it up and to hire those people. You know, I'm not a diversity and inclusion specialist, and I don't claim to be. I have a huge passion for inclusivity and belonging, and I have a huge passion for all these related topics in social justice. But that's not, you know, I'm not trained in having those really, you know, intimate and complicated conversations. But there are people that are, and those are the people that really need to be the ones that have the power, the ones that have the resources to do the work that they need to do in this world. So, yeah, I'm feisty today. I'm feisty because we're not holding space for people the way that we should. There's a lot of judgment going on, and that judgment is closing down conversations. I'm feisty because a lot of people that are for the cause, and I'm talking about primarily white people that are for the cause, are not willing to speak up because of fear and because of what they might need to sacrifice, or because they might get it wrong, because they might make mistakes and they don't want to risk that. Because there's this idea out there about perfectionism that holds us all back from actually doing good things because we are so worried about getting it perfect. And that is a challenge that society has created. Society has said to us, you better be perfect, or that's just another reason for you to get, you know, kicked out of that meeting or kicked out of that opportunity. So we've created a culture that condemns experimentation, that creates a demand for perfectionism, a perceived demand for perfectionism. And in this time, we can't strive for perfection. We have to strive for courage. And we have to be willing to learn from our mistakes and not beat ourselves up for the mistakes that we do make. And that's the work. We got to do the work on ourselves. We got to do the work in our communities and in our organizations. We have got to be the ones that stand up. We have got to be the ones that when microaggressions happen anywhere in our lives, that we say, oh, hey, let me just bring attention to what you just said. As allies, we have to do that. As leaders, we have to do that. We have to be more than just aware. We have to take action. We have to take action on what we're seeing everywhere, especially with our families. We have to do it with the people that are open and receptive. We have to recognize that not everybody is ready, and that's okay. You know, I look at it like, you know, like I'm a marketer, right? So I look at it like you've got like a target, you've got like a bullseye, right? The bullseye are the people that are like doing the hardcore work, and they really believe in like equality and what we're talking about these days. And then you have people that are kind of like, yeah, I'm for it, but I'm not willing to like, you know, acknowledge that I really am a racist, but I care, but I want to think that like I am a good person, whatever, right? And then it goes all the way out, and then you have like, you know, the ones who are, you know, violent and blatant, just, they don't want to change their perception of the world and of other people. And those aren't the people to talk to. You got to start where you can really create more and more advocates and create a bigger nucleus and a bigger nucleus. And then hopefully over time, we will create a culture, we will raise children that don't get to this extreme, closed-minded, you know, deep embedded racist beliefs that are immovable. And unfortunately, there are people that will be immovable in this moment. But all of that said, with all of this feistiness, first and foremost, we have to believe that change is possible. We have to believe it so that we take the actions that will lead us to that. And I really believe that this moment in time, as hard as it is, as difficult as it is, that it's creating one of the biggest cracks that we've seen in recent times. Biggest cracks to thinking differently, to reevaluating our thoughts and our behaviors. And that to me gives me great hope. I'm, like I said, I'm a coach. I'm a coach because I believe that people can change. But they have to want to change, right? It does require their participation, but I believe it's possible for people to get to that point. Maybe not in this lifetime, maybe in the next, I don't know. But holding hope that we can do something with this moment in time is, I think, something we have to remind ourselves in the darkest moments. And I really, really believe that this is that moment for massive change. And I also know it will not happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't change opinions, beliefs overnight. It takes constant conversations, constant focus and attention, real shifts in how we are allocating resources in order to do this work that we've always needed to do, but now it's just gotten a bigger spotlight. Thank God for that. So yeah, that's a lot of feisty for a Friday. I hope you are feisty too. I hope you're a little bit pissed, not just sad, but like pissed enough to like email legislation to reach out to those companies that are doing it wrong and force them to do it right. I hope that all the allies out there in this effort speak up, speak their truth, and push past the fear of getting it wrong and making mistakes. That's my Feisty on Friday. Thanks for joining me, everyone, and let's keep going. Don't stop. There's too much at stake.